Okay, so now we've divided our website into different sections. We have a header section at the top, we have a sidebar and a content area in the middle, and we have a footer down to the bottom. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start to look into how we can add content to these different sections and how we can actually set our content up within these sections. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Notepad, and I'm going to go back to the HTML. So we're going to adjust the HTML for the second website. So that'll be the most recent tab that we opened. Okay, so we have our body area here, and we have the different divs here. So we have the header section here, we have the sidebar, the content, and the footer. And within each of these, we have some text added without tags. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take out all of this text. I'm just going to leave it blank for now. And we're going to look into adding content that is set up in the proper way with tags. So let's say I wanted to add some text. So I'm going to add, let's say, a heading. So H1, or no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an H2 heading. And I'm going to show you why I'm not going to use the H1 heading. So I'm going to put H2, and I'm going to just put heading slash H2. Good. Okay, so I'm going to save this. Now what should happen now is that all of the text that we see in these different sections should disappear, except for this new heading that I put into my header here. So let's refresh it and see what happens. Good, so as I predicted, so all the other text is gone and we have the heading text here. Now the reason why I added this as an H2 tag and not an H1 tag is that if you remember, in our CSS, we already made some modifications to an H1 tag, okay, before. So we can see here that I have modifications to this H1 tag here. So if I was to come back and change this tag now back to an H1 tag, save, refresh, we can see now that this adopts the styling that I had intended for the other website, because this CSS style sheet is being linked to both websites. So it's going to cause the styling to apply to both websites. Okay. So looking at the styling for the heading again, we can see that I've changed the color. But what I want you to focus on is this. I want you to focus on the fact that I've set it to align in a central position within whatever container it is in. Okay. And we can, if we go back to the HTML for the second website, we can think of these four divs, the four divs that we can see here that we have in color. We can think of these as containers for content. Okay. So we split the website up into different sections, and those sections would act as containers for that content. So we can see here that the heading we've added is in a central position with regards to the heading at the top, well, the header at the top, sorry. And if I was to take this heading out from here, so I'm going to cut this. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to click cut. And I'm going to come here to the sidebar, and I'm going to see what happens here. So if I paste this in the sidebar and I save it and refresh it, oh, you're not going to see that because it's in blue. So let me change the color in the style to white. So I'm going to change color here to white. Okay, so that's the color within the H1 section in our CSS. So now I'm going to save that. I'm going to check it again. Good, so it's back, it's visible again. So we can see here that the heading is not in a central position with regards to the whole web page. It is using the boundary set up by our container here to determine what is center. Okay, so that's something that I want you to take note of. Whenever you put elements within a container, the elements respond to the boundaries of that container. And in this case, I'm calling the divs containers because that's essentially what they are. They take up sections of your website and they contain elements that you want to position in those areas. And the boundaries of these sections determines how the elements inside behave. So if I take this again, so if I take this from in this sidebar div here, I cut this and I paste this in here in our content, and I save it again and I refresh it, we can now see that it's behaving appropriately in that particular section. Something else I want you to take note of is that the area that is encapsulated by these divs is determined by where the opening tag is and where the closing tag is. So any content you put within the space between the opening tag and the closing tag will fall within that particular div. So that's what's happening here. So you can see here that the heading now is after the opening div tag here for content, but it is before the closing div tag for content. So it is bound within that particular container. Okay, so that's why we can see here that it's bound inside of here.